Be introducing our next speaker.
I will, who I haven't met but saw earlier. It's Perumal, isn't it, right? Mhukti. Yeah. You're going to tell us about a bit more about the NHS England Cancer Alliance associated plans, is that right?
Yes, I am, and this will be very quick because there's not too much to say.
Okay, great. Well, Joel.
So as I mentioned earlier, Cancer Alliances are leading lots of work around surveillance infrastructure over the last couple of years. And in particular, what they've been looking at is the box kind of highlighted in blue. So this is the plans for next year as well. And you can see a big kind of ask around that has been around data. So trying to understand how many people are currently sat in kind of your kind of surveillance lists. Of that, how many people are being invited and how many of those people are attending. So we're trying to get a bit of a baseline nationally around some of this data. Now, as you can imagine, that has been very, very difficult to get. We have got some data now, which is brilliant, but we have quite a long way to go. And the aim is to hopefully get to about kind of 80 to 90% coverage of all HCC surveillance providers this year, and essentially to kind of set that baseline. I mean, the trouble, other than kind of really manual task of going to get this data, is also kind of people's ability to, or kind of their want or need to kind of share this data more broadly with their cancer alliances. And I think possibly because some of that has been how this data is going to be used. Is it to kind of shame them around performance? And absolutely not. I think what we want to understand is from the stuff that we're doing to kind of improve surveillance and the kind of resource that's being put through cancer alliances to improve surveillance infrastructure, that essentially, what are we, if what we're doing is not resulting in any improvements, the funding will stop, essentially. So that has been the big ask this year, is to really kind of push on and get this data now. So in particular, that has been a big focus for next year, and we think, or the new financial year, and we think a good way to kind of address this data need is to look at core recall. Other than being a really great system to kind of support data, to support patients being invited for appointments, it will also help kind of services start to consolidate their patient lists, which you can imagine there are many patient lists for surveillance sat within individual providers. So this year, Cancer Alliances are looking at kind of embedding kind of core recall systems across any surveillance providers that need the systems. So we've nationally kind of done some work around with Infoflex and Somerset, so cancer registries, to think about how we can utilise those kind of those systems for core recall. Again, any services wanting to use that should definitely get in touch with their cancer alliances. But we also know that there are other kind of systems in use, My Medical Record, RedCap, lots of different things which are being used across the country, which we would highly recommend. And again, I think the aim this year is really to kind of start building that data and start building and kind of consolidating those lists, with the aim being that from this year we've, in some kind of good news, had some confirmation from the National Data Registry Service that they will start beginning to build a HCC surveillance, or essentially a cirrhosis registry, this year. So, I mean, I think it's been a lot of hard work to get to this point, because, as you can imagine, there are a lot of asks within NHS England around registries. So we've been competing quite a lot of people to do this for the last couple of years, and have finally made some headway. So it's in their business plans for this year to start beginning to design this. And I guess my ask really is just to kind of put it out to people to say, we would really love some people to kind of step forward and help with this. It's obviously, really important, and we need to make sure that we're collecting the right data from the start, or we can draw on particular, kind of data that is already in existence, which I think Hamish is going to talk about next. But I think there's a lot of stuff that already exists that we can draw on, but there's also a lot of things that probably we need to probably set up from now as well. It's not, we're not looking for just kind of clinical perspective. Obviously, that's really important to this, but I think also some data insight, people that are particularly, kind of understand the kind of the data that sits behind some of the stuff that you're looking at and within these registries. So anybody interested, we would love to hear from you, and please do just let myself or Amy know if you would like to join this group. But I think it's a really positive step forward for us, and I think essentially all the work that's been done through Cancer Alliances locally to consolidate these lists, to also then look at kind of core recall, will all eventually feed into kind of the national registry. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with kind of other cancer kind of tumour sites and cancer registries, in particular thinking about Lynch registries. And I think the real trouble has been that we kind of set up registries and then we have to populate them with data afterwards. I think we've done this the other way around, which puts us in a really fortunate position in that we've already started collecting data for the last couple of years, and actually we can kind of feed that data into the registry once it's ready to go, which will save us some time in the long run. So I think some really kind of positive step forward, but obviously the hard work kind of begins this year to start thinking about actually how do we build that. So like I've said, if anybody's interested, we'd really love to hear from you. That was it. Thank you.